watch the first section of a documentary. So I'm betting, well, I don't know. If you asked your classmates, I'm sure they told you, yeah, we didn't do anything. If you have Netflix, you could finish it on your own, but I will try to get to the point that we can finish it. I did watch it last night while I was eating dinner. There's not a whole lot more like math or anything that amazing. They go through the Go Congress and they determine the first 2 U.S. pros. So like that, I'm not going to tell you, that's spoiling the movie. So Congress essentially just means like competition. So they have like a whole bracket and everything. So they process through the bracket. And my buddy Dave, I don't know why I always say my buddy Dave. Dave, you guys know of already. So I was looking for something. He commented like, well, yeah, that's the American way of doing things. It's like a lot of these other countries, like people study, and actually this one gentleman in the video was talking about like, it's hard to get American kids to study the same thing for like 10 hours. Like that's just not like, Americans don't do that, right? Like we're not used to that. We don't have that like dedication. And you kind of see that play out in the competition.
Played a pretty awesome game of Go last night. I got absolutely destroyed.
Did you go to Clintonville or where?
No, just online.
Oh, okay. Mr. Praise is hosting meetups on Sundays and Thursdays, right? Like public, like community meetups. Sundays he's up here on like over by Micro Center. You know where that is?
Yeah.
And Thursdays he's down in Clintonville, like a little coffee shop.
You know key forges?
No. Okay. So, Katoa. See what I did there? See what I did there? All right, let's write it down again to make sure we're comfortable. So,
I'm gonna game in you.
No solid, no game ending math.
How do you spell Katoa?
How do you spell toe?
T-O-A.
Yes. No, that's Toa.
now here's the issue, and I was working with a student last night, tutoring, and this is always an issue, but it was very apparent last night. The issue with how we write these things out, where are you going? No, just get a piece of graph paper. No, organize yourself later. I have like 25 minutes left. Classes are so short today. This is misleading because there really needs to be like a theta squeezed in here and an equal sign squeezed in here and then like a fraction bar squeezed in here.
Oh, I can do this!
This is I like your excitement, but just chill. This is just a memory trick to make sure you remember what sides relate to the trig function. It is not like an albeit shortcut to like, we're missing stuff up there, right? So I'm going to try to work through this quickly because we only have a half an hour, and the shortcut method of just understanding SOHCAHTOA, gravity still works.
Yay.
Actually, I think a student set that up almost as a booby trap because that happened yesterday during extensions. So if we are in San Francisco, there are a lot of really hilly streets in California because it's like quickly goes from ocean to mountain. And we, from our study so far, know that if I have the tangent of theta, or in this case, tangent of 31.5, and we could pull out like our reference sheet or whatever, what does that give us really? And don't tell me opposite over adjacent. What, like, if I put in tangent of an angle, what is it actually spitting out? Mid? Yeah, it's the slope, right? And that, if we make it ratio form, is rise over run, which is elevation over travel. Right? So, Juanisha is walking for 100 feet, right? Her pedometer tells you you've taken 100 feet worth of steps. So she stops, because she's probably out of breath, because California. California is great, but walking around California is not so great until you work up your calves, and then it's probably fine. Great calf workout going uphill or downhill.
So what if an earthquake happens when you're walking?
Who what?
What if an earthquake happens when you're walking?
Yeah, sit down, probably. I would, like, get on the ground.
That is
Or, like, just get on your butt and slide. Over, put your head between your legs and kiss your butt goodbye. Isn't that the whatever? No, I mean, so earthquakes do happen out in California, but normally right by the fault line.
Happened already
Today.
Yeah, like
Three have happened today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
In California.
you run that risk when you live somewhere over a fault line. Like we're pretty
It's
far
your
away.
fault. Is that why Ohio's getting
Sine.
So would that be sine of 31.5?
Stop. Why are you way ahead?
Because I want to make sure I get
No.
this right.
Chill. So Juanisha sets this up, right? Tangent of 31.5 is the rise over run, the delta y, the delta x, poop. I don't know delta y. I don't know delta x. Even if, so some of you with a calculator type in sine of 31.5, what do we get? Sorry, tangent of 31.5.
Come on.
Satya got in my head trying to do sine.
61.28.
0.61.
Yeah, 61. Point 61.28.
0.61 point. So
What?
about 6/10, right? Close to 6/10. So I could relate that to like 61 over 100. But we know that this can't be 100 because
Yeah.
if the hypotenuse is 100, this can't be.
And that's definitely not going to equal
Shoot. And it's definitely not an isosceles triangle, right? Because if I try to make 100, it's a right triangle. Man, I know the hypotenuse, so I could try to force some Pythagorean, but
use sin.
Satya.
Would it be sine? No, sine of 31.5 equals y divided by 100. Sine of 31.5. I think I could do not on the calculator.
So we've talked about these triangles, but in a different manner. We now are looking at our 60-degree triangle. So 30, 60, 90 are at our special right triangle. If we look at it's a 30, 60, 90 or 45, 45, 90. Those are just the specials. That was a math 1 thing. And it's okay if you're not like familiar with that. But special just means it has that special relationship of 30, 60, 90. You know, this angle is half of this angle, and then this angle is triple of that angle.
Yeah.
Or 45, 45, 90. These are both half of that.
How is that?
Because we just named them special. In the same way that like you are special to your mother, and like it's just special.
Wow. You
Like,
Mr. Hudson, you had to.
Dude, I'm the youngest. And, yeah, trust me, I know. My sister was the favorite. Now she would say I was the favorite, obviously. So now they give us this. Right? If we go back to like resource pages, and I do actually have a handout resource page for you guys if you want to take some notes. Well, calm down. You just use these if you want to. Have you ever checked your resource pages?
No.
You haven't even checked.
This is just as a resource. It is a reference opportunity. So if we set up a 1 to 2 relationship, and actually guys, we know this. Whether you remember this or not, in a 30, 60, 90 triangle, the hypotenuse is twice your short side. And the medium side, anyone remember this relationship? We'll even do for a piece of candy.
1/2. Twice.
Square root of
1/2. 1/2. 1/2.
Is it square root of 2 or is it square root of 3?
2.
2.
3. I don't know. Hold
Let
on.
me
Let me
think
think
You're
through
all
it. Let me think through it.
guessing.
No, wait, think through it.
I got it. I got it.
Satya, here's the other reason why we call them special right triangles. So it's easy to Google.
Yeah.
Seriously. If you know that those are your special right triangles and you can quickly Google them, this is not a good image. Oh, there we go. Well, here's how you remember difference between square root 2 and square root 3. Oh, come on. I need to stop clicking on
Is
this.
it square root 1?
Good control plus.
Square
I
root
know.
of 1 is 1.
So square root of 3.
Check it. In this triangle, 2 angles are the same.
Yeah.
Square root 2. In this triangle, everything is 3 or 6 or 9, right? Like 3 times square root 3. That's how you can remember square root 2, square root 3. 2 angles are the same. 3 different angles.
4.
And everything is like 3, 6, 9. Okay, so if we come back Here, the medium side is square root 3. I would love for you guys to throw this in your notes just so you have it again.
Thank you.
Times the short side, or short side square root 3. If we wanted to use the multiplier first.
I am bad at drawing my triangle.
We know these, right? This is nothing new. However, the relationship that we can force kind of is. It's a new application of what we know.
No.
What? Dude, TV. Capture. Never do I just want to like get rid of things.
Aha, you will fail the test.
Now, you could also... Well, it's up there.
Oh!
TV.
You said that my parents said TV causes evilness.
So,
Did you say Levi?
if I know that I have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, I can figure out my short side and my medium side by knowing my hypotenuse. What's my short side becoming? 3.5, right? I half my hypotenuse. What's my medium side?
Oh,
Or we call it the big leg, because there's 2 legs, and this I had this pop on my Facebook as a memory. I like almost peed my pants one time. Not literally, but like I was laughing a lot. I was like intensely teaching. I'm like, all right, so we have a leg, and this side is, and this student like deadpan serious was like, an arm? I just couldn't even, hypotenuse, right? We have leg, hypotenuse.
No brain, no head, just 2 legs and an arm.
Yes, exactly.
Arm connection
So,
to
sorry, rad 3. Now, the appropriate way to write it would be that. Right? The appropriate way to write it would be this.
You didn't do it right.
You're bad.
He's like,
What?
I got a different thing. You must be in something else. And I'm like, you didn't even do it right.
You gotta love that
So,
mindset.
hold on. Are we squared away now? Like, do you know what you goofed
I'm
up?
square rooted.
The bottom side of
What I keep coming over here to check is how long I have you guys. Sorry, I keep forgetting to actually look at the schedule. 18 malarkey. I only have 15 minutes left. So, we take this and we go back to the unit triangle, or unit circle, okay? Yeah, I'll capture it. Or, sorry, I'll just do it. So, if we, well, okay, and this isn't even, does this problem go? I swear we went to the unit circle somewhere.
Nope.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different lesson.
And
So-
you learned your lesson.
Yay, you get
Give me a
rid
minute. No, you're good. So, remember the upper right quadrant of the unit circle? And it being called unit circle because the hypotenuse is 1?
No matter where you go, it's always 1.
This should be a little bit higher, probably. That's not quite 60 degrees. What would this become then?
The special one.
Wait, just half your hypotenuse. And what's this thing?
That's
Square root
radical.
Radical
That's
square root.
Don't you have to do times
So-
point half?
Yeah, don't you?
what half radical three?
Half times square root of 3.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Why don't you just use sine and cosine?
So, here, this location of this point is 1/2 radical 3. Right? If we take it back to the unit circle, right, now that we know the hypotenuse, and we relate it back to that special right triangle, we can do the same thing with a 30-degree angle. And 1. But then this becomes the half. This becomes half rad 3. And this point is just flipped around. Hang on just a second.
No.
Hang on. This is how we build the unit circle and why it is what it is. Now, like, we're going to keep going back and forth and, like, touching on this occasionally. But I just want you guys to, like, understand knowledge you already have. Special right triangles is how the unit circle is made. And then we throw the 45-45 in there. And we know those relationships, too, because we have radical 2 times that other side.
They crossbred and made an isosceles triangle. There's no triangle. The one is in the middle.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. So potentially, I'm not quite sure if this would be equidistant to that, but probably if I draw it correctly.
No, it's gonna be a millimeter off.
Thank you. Actually, I need to undo these before I really want to capture it.
It's gonna be 7 seconds off.
7 seconds,
Yeah.
like longitude, latitude.
No, time-wise.
So we now build. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Dan. I mean, if you need to go to the nurse, I can give you a pass. But or do you not feel good because you're all like tight up in your sweatshirt?
Oh yeah, that's fine. But
You
sorry.
get cold in probably.
I don't know.
You'll
Chris
get
gave
better
me
in a
Ligma.
Do you need to go to the nurse?
Oh, no.
Yeah,
That's
that's okay. I know Sharon-
Sanjay, have a hat. It'll make you feel better.
Okay, I don't think that's.
I of course have
It'll
my
totally
head.
help.
If you want to borrow my sweatshirt,
Wait, that's
Hey,
my
do you like need to go get a drink of water or something?
oh, actually, you know what?
You couldn't be hydrated. How much water have you been
A
drinking?
lot. Like,
Really?
yeah.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
just
you-
chugged like the entire thing. Here,
I
Sasha.
mean, it might just be the weather changes. I mean, if you want to go to the nurse, tell me. I'll give you a
Can I
pass.
give him some
No.
advice really quick?
No one will be able to do dodgeball.
Sasha. Sasha.
No, you know what? You just want to go to the nurse.
It's because
Then
you're
go
really,
over
really
this
hot.
honestly.
You take off your sweatshirt, you'll feel better.
Well, that too.
Feel your arm.
So,
Feel your arms.
if we try to make the triangle nicer,
Isn't it?
yeah, actually, because your core needs to be warm. You need to wear pants. Is what you need to start doing. It's cold outside. You need to wear pants.
I'm fine.
What? Yeah, different bodies, dude. You two are very different people.
Yeah, he has a
If-
birth defect.
We want to clean up this triangle.
No.
Yo, we have like 10 minutes.
Actually, I like
If we want to clean up this triangle, just make the hypotenuse 2. So then instead of being half, this is 1. And instead of being half of radical 3, this is just radical 3. A new ratio we then discover is the sine of 60 actually comes out to be the division or the ratio or the fraction of the slope. Sorry, not slope. Take out that last word. Radical 3 divided by 2. If we compute this, it is what we get for sine of 60. So this guides us to, and please make sure this is in our notes, sine of theta is the opposite side, or if it's the elevation angle, you could say this is the rise, right? The change in y. If it is set up as the elevation angle, right? That's a 60-degree elevation. And then this is the hypotenuse, or if it's actually set up as an elevation triangle, it's how far you traveled on the line of slope. So the sloped line distance, hypotenuse, right? But we can manipulate these triangles any way we want, so be very careful. That's why I don't like how CPM just gets really rigid with tangent being slope. It all depends on what angle you're using. Thomas?
So, is this kind of like tangent, but you're finding the slope of the bottom leg?
So it's exactly like tangent, except instead of it giving us the slope ratio, it's giving us the ratio of the height change, like elevation change. Like, so to learn this, imagine that every triangle you're going to be given is a right triangle with the right angle here. Okay, so imagine that we're always being given this as our theta, and we could turn triangles as like to
That
make
wouldn't
them
work.
fit that model. If we know this distance, so the actual travel, like when you walk up the hill, and then the change in height. I'll goof this up now.
Don't say it, Chris.
No.
Don't say it.
I'll take what heckin'
What is that?
sorcery.
That's
It's
No,
my
he
smart
said
one
it
trying to
is
catch
this.
up.
Math symbol.
What heckin' sorcery is
He
this?
said it.
Oil McGab.
Diablo.
You know,
This is the side that doesn't get involved here. The run does not get involved in sine.
Let's just say traveler.
Now, travel, but my pen got goofed up, and that's why the link is also covered. So please make sure you have sine of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse in your notes. And then, if we had a triangle where we know the run, I'm just trying to teach this as quickly as possible because I know we're going to run out of time.
Adjacent.
So,
If we have the adjacent and the hypotenuse,
That's
what haven't we talked about? Ooh,
Adjacent
Jacob. Cosine of that elevation angle is going to equal. Sorry, I don't need that parentheses.
9.
It sounds like nerve. Did you say
We're all
smells?
hot
Might
nerve.
smell like nerve.
That is a good thing.
That's where we're
Yeah, you do
That
one
would just
better.
be Jake.
There's
So,
so much she
A
knows.
little bit less freezing.
Somebody throw cosine of 37 into your
I'm
calculator.
gonna try that. Or eight.
Oh my God.
0.7986.
Now, because we know that we get, if we had enough time to experiment and test all this out, I'm going to come back to it in a second.
0.8.
This hypotenuse is always bigger, right? So for us to get 0.79, we have to have a bigger number on bottom. So hypotenuse has to go on bottom here, and this is your run or your delta x, or what we commonly refer to as the adjacent side.
All three of us go like this, even though.
All you guys are bad.
What? True.
You're just making yourself feel
One
as
thing I
if
agree on Jacob with.
No, that's actually a 6.
All right, so let's return to help Juanisha.
You are
No, I don't want to help Juanisha.
But she needs our help.
I got so sick.
No, she doesn't.
She could just move to another town.
Yeah.
If she really
Go away,
wanted.
there's earthquakes there.
Where there's
Yeah, but you can like kayak in the ocean.
Well, yeah, but they
And then you
kayak.
lost and died.
I kayak on
And
the
then
river
you
too.
can calculate
You can't
the
kayak on
area.
land.
Yeah, you can kayak in a lake or a river or a stream. Yeah. All the rubber that's cool.
We take water. No,
No, it's actually meant to.
Depends on how big of the boat. Did you hear about the Titanic too? They made a new Titanic.
Oh, watch it crash.
Its maiden voyage is set for I think 2022.
No one's gonna go on it.
All right, we need to help Juanisha.
I hope it crosses like
Challenge. You have 5 minutes left in class. I'm gonna give you 2 minutes. Find Juanisha's rise and run.
Why?
Wait,
Yes, that would be the rise. Find Juanisha's rise and run. Now you know it's an acute angle, so the rise should be less than the run, right? Because you know it's an acute angle, the rise should be less than the run. If you get something different, you screwed something up.
Yeah, most likely me.
So does the cosine give you the opposite, and then sine gives you, and sine gives you the
That's gonna
negative,
make Saki's brain explode.
and then the
Don't go there.
and then
They do relate to each other, but don't go there.
I don't need anything else.
What do each of the operations give you? Like, what does tangent give you?
Oh, tangent. This is why we put SOHCAHTOA in our head.
I know,
Tangent gives you the OA,
Could we yell it out?
but then you can like,
which means opposite side over the adjacent side, which would be opposite the angle, adjacent, like next to. It's not hypotenuse. Hypotenuse does not count as adjacent. It gets its own letter.
Create a yell
So,
out.
so does tangent get?
tangent's worthless here because both of these are unknown.
But what?
Sine, the so,
Yeah.
gives you opposite over hypotenuse. So of course you have to build your proportion.
I figured it out. Maybe I don't know.
Wait, Mr. Hudson, does this look right?
It could look right, but still be wrong, Satya.
Yeah, just here.
Wait,
Is that all stuff on your computer?
I should probably put that in.
Probably.
Did you get 8 for delta x?
Yeah. I got the thingy on. I got the y, and then tried using tangent.
Why did you
So,
just hand up that 1.5?
What do we get for delta y?
so then when we oh delta y?
No, you can't
Do
do
jumping jack.
I got the
Yeah, like how high did she travel? Yeah, what do you got, Tom?
No wait, yeah, no, that's on the right track.
Did you say 52?
What?
32?
No,
No.
I got 52.
divided by
52.25.
So if we set this up, this side is the opposite,
Yeah.
right, from the angle that we have, and then we have hypotenuse. We got to use sine. So sine of 31.5 equals the y we don't know over the 100.
Why
So
don't
y
I-
will equal 100 times sine of 31.5.
which is 52.25.
Oh, so I did get it right.
Then couldn't you use tangent? Oh no.
52 point what? 25. Now, we could, however,
You use tangent.
how much you trust yourself. Do you trust yourself to never make a mistake?
Nope.
No.
So why, this is a great discussion we had back when I was in college. Why would we use a value that we found when we don't need to?
Because maybe that value could be wrong.
Well, that's why we shouldn't. Right? So, like, there's no need to use this to find that. So don't.
Because then if you get one wrong, you get both
If you get one wrong, you got both wrong. So, to find this side, we're going to use cosine
31.5.
equals the run, or the x I don't know, over the hypotenuse. Also, this is easier, because this is in the denominator, and I can just cross multiply, and really that's just one multiplication necessary. What does this become?
85.26.
Oh, I just wrote 8. What am I doing? I forgot to finish it.
Okay. I got that one right. And then I just did
So you might have accidentally used the wrong function up there. Or
cosine and then tangent. So do I?
did you say that you had gotten 31.5? Yeah, I don't know. how you did that.
I did.
All right, so we are out of time here in just like 1 minute. If we need to, like, and this is not a bad thing, but if we need to on Monday, we can pick up right here and go through some of these problems together to get more comfortable with it. Try the homework.
This makes sense.
Just try.
Mr.
Just,
Hudson, I did that yesterday by accident.
that's fine. Just engage with it. Give it a shot. Put some time into it. Figure out what is making you struggle, and let's review that. Okay.
Tangent just kind of makes sense already.
Hey, Mr.
Salty,
Hudson.
I cannot lie
So
now.
I tried to
I
find
know what
what
to
you
do
did
to make
go
my head
for
explode.
online.
No!
Do it.
Okay, what is
There's
it?
a thing that sells
You
like
made me curious. Do it.
big
Oh my gosh, I thought that was an iPad. Dude. You're just like letting it fall. Like, what is happening?
Wait, what?
like
I thought his notebook was an iPad and he just like let it fall. So there's a global shortage of Go boards right now. Like there's an actual shortage of Go boards. And if you like look up like what we were watching yesterday, like those ancient wood booby traps.
Just make it.
I
think
so funny enough, I'm thinking of making my own Go board as well, but my wood will need to season for 2 years because I just cut down these trees. So I might try one with like just other wood that I find. Which honestly, if you went to like Home Depot or somewhere and you just search for like plank lumber,